Where are we at in society today? Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
Go ahead. Make my day.
Every single week, I put my freaking heart and soul into this. I don't go out there and laugh. It's not funny. It's not fun. Nothing's funny to me. I don't want to go out there and get embarrassed on Monday Night Football in front of everybody.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
So ain't nothing changed from yesterday. Still the same person I was yesterday. And I got the same thing for you that I had yesterday. You know why I'm here.
You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out. Because it matters.
Hey, we got a good-looking Tuesday for you here on X's and Bros. Glad you're with us throughout the state of Michigan. The Meyer Hotline is there for you, 866-838-4843. You can always text the program, Sports Radio, to 21,000. I'm Matt Shepard. We're with you Monday through Friday from 6 until 9. Not a lot happening last night except for Luka Doncic's Lakers debut, his first game since Christmas, and he goes out, puts up 14 points, and plays a major role for assists. Lakers blowout win over the Jazz. Happy to discuss that with you if you'd like a little bit later on. Michigan is back in action tonight. They can host number 7 Purdue at Chrysler Center. Boilermakers have won 4 in a row. They lead the Big Ten at 11-2. They are 19-5 on the year. They blew out the Wolverines by 27 a couple of weeks ago. That led to their 4-game win streak. Michigan has won 4 in a row. Their last loss to Purdue. So they've responded nicely under Dusty May, and they are looking forward to catching and surpassing Purdue in the Big Ten standings. Michigan at 18-5, sitting a half game back at the top spot in the conference, just like MSU is. Speaking of the top 25, the latest has Michigan pulling in at number 20. MSU drops a couple of spots. They are at number 9 right now in the Big Ten, or to 11, excuse me. Auburn remains number 1 for a 5th straight week. Tigers are followed by Alabama, and then Duke, and then Florida, and then Tennessee. Wisconsin in the Big Ten ranks 16th. Maryland in the Big Ten ranks 24th. The teams that drop out of the top 25, UConn for the first time in 2 years, and Illinois is no longer in the top 25. And UConn, their head coach, Danny Hurley, has come out and said, they're not crowning anybody at this time of the year. I mean, it's a good point. It's true. You'd like to be a little bit more successful than what they have been so far. It's tough when you've got that proverbial bullseye on your back all season long. There are different ways that you get challenged during a season, and UConn is going through that right now. Here's our poll question for the day. Have the Tigers done enough in the offseason to win the division? Do you think the Tigers, in the acquisition of Jack Flaherty, Tommy Kahnle, Gleyber Torres, and Alex Cobb, are good enough to win the AL Central? Now, remember this. Last year, it was a late push that Detroit needed, but Cleveland has, to say downgraded might be a little bit difficult for Cleveland Guardians fans to accept, but the right side of their infield, you can't imagine they can be as productive offensively and defensively, especially defensively, with Andres Gimenez on the right side. Kansas City is a team. I thought about this while I was thinking about this poll question. If we believe in momentum or motivation, let's use the word motivation rather than momentum, because you're not going to convince me that momentum from last year is going to carry over into this year. Now, we have read all kinds of articles about various players, really in sports, but specifically the Tigers, and how last year's run, close push toward an ALCS appearance, loss in a Game 5 to Cleveland has motivated many Tigers. That's great. I'm not saying it doesn't, because they're the ones going through it. How do I know what their motivation is? Does that work is the big debate. Is Kansas City, I'm just wondering here, we think automatically, well, Detroit came so close. So that means next year they can turn the page and they can take that next step. Let's say you believe that. Okay. What about Kansas City? They came close too. Better yet, what about Cleveland? Cleveland actually reached the ALCS, but they lost, as you know, in that series to the Yankees. So is there not similar, if not more intense, motivation for those teams? I'm just wondering. I look at it and I think when we look at the personal side of things, the rooting interest, if you will, for our teams, and we consider last year is definitely going to give them motivation. Okay. I can live with that. I can jump on board with that belief. Does it override the strong motivation that I'm sure, and I'm sitting here reading the various Kansas City newspapers and Missouri newspapers or anything like that, but does it override their sense of urgency? Or does it override the urgency of the Cleveland Guardians or the New York Yankees? They reached the World Series and lost. Or the Baltimore Orioles. 92 wins for Cleveland last year. Second most in the American League, I believe, right, to the Yankees. The Yankees won 94 games, I think. Cleveland had more wins than Houston. I'm trying to remember, do they have more wins than Baltimore? I thought they had more wins than Baltimore. When we were talking about this last year, I thought we were saying, look, Cleveland's got the second most wins in the American League, among the most in all of baseball. Right? The Yankees had 94. The Phillies had 95. The Dodgers had 98. Yeah, Milwaukee and Padres. So it wasn't really in all of baseball, but it was in the American League. They had the second most in the American League. My point is, their sense of urgency, their desire might be a little bit stronger than Detroit. Is that fair to assume? I think it is. Great article yesterday about the Eagles and their Super Bowl victory and what Nick Sirianni said helped push his team. We'll get to that coming up here on X's and Bros. I wonder if we as Tigers fans take this into consideration. That's all. I think we look at our team and look, that's who you follow. You're not worried. I mean, maybe you are if you're fantasy baseball. And as a baseball fan, I'm sure you follow certain players. That doesn't surprise me, okay? You're charting, hey, Jose Ramirez really is that good, right? But how deep are we investing in what Cleveland or Kansas City or anybody else is doing? You care about your team, and I understand that. But when we talk about motivation, when we talk about teams searching for that final piece, that last push, like the Tigers needed a year ago, we need to understand that somebody got in their way. And if that team didn't reach, like the only team that's satisfied is the Dodgers, right? All these other teams, whether it be San Diego or San Francisco, Philadelphia, Atlanta, all these teams, and I know they're just the National League, all these teams are motivated, man. They all came up shorter than they expected, that they wanted. They felt like they let something slip away, don't you think? Anyway, that's the reason we came up with a poll question. You can vote as often as you like. You can go to Twitter, follow us at XB Mornings, and we will give you the results in the 8 o'clock hour tomorrow here on X's and Bros. Speaking of that, we did ask you if the Chiefs dynasty is over. That was the poll question from yesterday. We will have those results a little bit later on here this morning. When we come back, we will talk about that motivation. When you talk about it, you talk about a sense of urgency and a sense of purpose. This is a perfect example of the team that just won the Super Bowl. We'll explain what it is when we come back on X's and Bros on a Tuesday morning. This hour of our program proudly brought to you by our friends at Ferris Coffee. They're in Grand Rapids, but serve throughout the country in all 50 states.
Saturday, April 5th, Soaring Eagle Casino becomes Daryl's house. Don't miss a legend live, Daryl Hall, with special guest Glenn Kilbrook of Squeeze. Tickets start at $62 and are on sale now at the box office and etix.com. Make your favorite Sarah smile. Daryl Hall with Glenn Kilbrook, Saturday, April 5th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. SoaringEagleCasino.com.
Huge here with an invitation for all of you to join Van Andel Institute and Fox Motors Hockey for Hockey Fights Cancer at Southside Ice Arena in Byron Center. It will take place February 21st through February 23rd. You can join the fun and help raise awareness and funds for Van Andel Institute's research into diseases like cancer and Parkinson's. Since 2016, Southside Hockey Fights Cancer has raised nearly $500,000 for groundbreaking research at VAI. You can help them reach the $500,000 mark and make a positive impact on the future of human health. Learn more at foxmotorshockey.com. That is foxmotorshockey.com. What's up, Michigan? You're listening to Shep. Don't forget the huge show later today at 3 on the Michigan Sports Network.
You know, it's interesting when it comes to coaches and motivation and their inspiration and things of that nature. Welcome back, X's and Bros. Philly, of course, winning their franchise's second ever Super Bowl on Sunday night in a blowout win over the Chiefs. They're going to have their parade this Friday scheduled in Philadelphia. And Nick Sirianni was asked about their recent disappointments. Of course, losing in the Super Bowl to the same Kansas City team a couple of years ago. Last year, starting 10-0, 10-1, and then losing 6 of their last 7 before falling to Tampa in the playoffs. And everybody wanted Nick Sirianni's head on a platter 2 years ago. You can't win with this guy. They weren't good enough. How did they not prepare better for Kansas City than last year? In great jubilation, off to an unbelievable start, and everybody was handing them the trophy. And then things came to a screeching halt where they couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't score on anybody. They couldn't beat anybody. And obviously they went out with a whimper to everybody in Philadelphia. Seemingly everybody in Philadelphia wanted him gone. You could almost understand why. You reach the mountaintop. You get a chance for a championship. You come up short. The next year, the motivation is, let's pick up where we left off, but find that extra gear and bring home a championship. And it started out great. And then something happened. And then accusations fly. Oh, he's lost the team. He can't inspire them. All these different things were said about the Eagles a year ago. And then this year they come out and, quite honestly, they went quietly about their business. We were focused on the Lions, and rightfully so. I mean, LA's focused on LA. San Francisco's focused on the Niners. People in Washington were all excited about the Commanders. I get all that. That's the way it should be. But nationally, Philadelphia, to a certain extent, outside of Saquon Barkley getting all kinds of love, outside of A.J. Brown reading a book on the sideline and having supposedly a feud with his quarterback, flew under the radar, no pun intended. They kind of flew under the radar because so much more attention was being given to Jaden Daniels in Washington, Detroit, and the juggernaut of an offense that they had, the collapse of San Francisco, how bad the NFC South is, all those things. To a certain extent, I think Philadelphia kind of flew under the radar. But Sirianni said yesterday that he's actually happy now.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone first.
He's actually happy now that they went through what they went through last year. And that was the struggle, 10-1 start, losing 6 of 7 and falling to Tampa in the playoffs. Now, he can say that now because he won it all. That's easy to say now. But were you saying it then? Probably not. Were you saying it earlier this year? Probably not. But he said, I look back at last year and how last year ended, and I'm grateful. This is his words now. As crazy as this sounds, I'm grateful how last year ended because it shaped us to who we are today. With the adversity of the beginning of the year and the adversity through the season, through injuries, through ups and downs, through everything, he said. That's interesting. The beginning of the year, how they started so strong. I don't understand what kind of adversity, but he understands it better than anybody because he was in that room and with that team every day. He continued and said, I think that when you embrace adversity, it does something to you. It does something to you personally. Each and every individual on that football team, the adversity does something to you, and it does something to you as a football team as well. Our guys, I think, that could be the biggest attribute. They work their butts off to connect. I think every team is out there working hard. It's just whether or not you have enough talent, enough camaraderie and cohesiveness and unselfishness to succeed. He said his pregame message to the Eagles going into the Super Bowl was simple. It was 3 words: tough, detailed, and together. He said, we talked about it all year long. This is the one that caught me. My job is not to inspire them. It's just more to remind them of the things they already know and keep it really short. I talked during the week, so before the game, pretty much consistent. Week 1 through week 37, whatever, we're a tough, detailed, and we're together. That's our core value. Okay. So the inspire thing really got my attention. Here's a guy. I'm not saying every coach feels this way at every single sport, at every single level. I'm just telling you how he felt going into it. His job isn't to inspire them. We too oftentimes get wrapped up in the rah stuff at the professional level. Well, Shep, at halftime, Dan Campbell's going to go in and chew some ass. Maybe that might happen once a year, maybe twice. It's not what they do, okay? This is not Gene Hackman in Hoosiers. It's not Herb Brooks or Kurt Russell in this case in Miracle. That is not how it works in the National Football League or even in the pros. We think that pros in any sport, we think that a lot of managers, they have a closed-door meeting. Do you know how many times they have a closed-door meeting? Not very often, okay? It might happen, like I said, twice a year. There's only so much you can do. Coaches aren't there to inspire, according to the Philly head coach. What they're there to do is remind them, reinforce the message. The message is, in this case, you need to be tough. You need to be detailed. We need to stay together. And that team took it to heart. Didn't work every single week, but for the most part it did. I found that fascinating. I think in college, it's probably more rah-rah stuff than anything else. And sure, on certain plays, I think there is. I mean, you've seen plenty of guys, Jim Harbaugh especially. That's just who he is, though. Do you see that in Andy Reid? No. Andy Reid is very stoic for the most part. Did you see that in Bill Belichick? It doesn't always work for the same type of people and the same coach all the time. Dan Campbell is that, right? For sure. Mike McCarthy, maybe a bad example, in Denver, wasn't necessarily that. Kyle Shanahan isn't necessarily that. Maybe things are changing a little bit. Maybe because of the younger guard, the younger coaches in the National Football League, maybe that's a little bit more who they are. They're a little bit more, if you want to call it, inspirational, which, again, I find interesting because the best coach is not that way. And then you get a guy like Pete Carroll, who has always been that way, gets a new job in Las Vegas. How much does it matter? Your coach, your team, their personality, if it wins for that guy, what difference does it make? I don't care how much emotion Andy Reid shows on the sidelines if I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. All I care about is how they're getting victories. And they are getting victories, except for the biggest game of the year, right? This is how Philadelphia used it. The motivation stems from last year's failure rather than the success or near championship success of 2 years ago. So he used the negative into a positive. What's the negative the Lions would use this year that would turn to a positive? Because I think most of what we believe, and I had somebody tell me this last night, what we believe is they just ran out of healthy bodies. You're watching the Super Bowl. Don't tell me there wasn't a point in time, if you as a Lions fan, at some point during the game, you were thinking, how would we have fared against that Kansas City team? I thought it. I think everybody I was watching the game with thought the exact same thing. How would Detroit have fared against the Chiefs? Well, they would have had to get by Philadelphia first. And a friend of mine said to me last night, I think Philadelphia would have trucked us by 60. And I'm not so sure about that because I think Detroit's offense would put some points up against Philly. But Detroit would have a hard time stopping Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, especially with that defense because of the injuries. And I believe that's where we were at. I truly believe that's where we were at. We're looking at that game and thinking the same thing. Now, the question is, if Dan Campbell or Nick Sirianni, what would he implement as those 3 words? What would the 3 words be from you to them, to the Lions, for next year? Meyer Hotline, 866-838-4843. You can text us, Sports Radio, to 21,000 on this Tuesday morning edition of X's and Bros.
Rock legend Peter Frampton comes alive. Peter Frampton, the Let's Do It Again tour returns Saturday, April 19th to Soaring Eagle Casino. Tickets start at $73 and are on sale now at the box office or etix.com. Peter Frampton, April 19th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. SoaringEagleCasino.com.
Valentine's Day is a good deal sweeter when you shop at Meijer. This week, select bagged Valentine's Day candy is buy one, get one 50% off. Fresh from Meijer chocolate dipped strawberries are just $9.99. Certified Angus beef New York strip steak is $11.99 a pound. And our floral department is overflowing with beautiful fresh Valentine's Day bouquets and flower arrangements. Count on Meijer to bring more from the heart to Valentine's Day. Exclusions apply. See all deals in-store, in the Meijer app, and online at Meijer.com.
I'd like to consider myself a pretty big rock fan. Okay. And Cinderella brings us back from break. Somebody Save Me. I mean, it's just Save Me is the name of the song. It's a great song. It really is. Listened to it yesterday at the gym. But I noticed yesterday was the 47th anniversary of the first ever Van Halen album, the self-entitled Van Halen 1. So it was the 47th anniversary. Scrounging through various social media, the obvious question was, what is your favorite track? Was it Running with the Devil, which probably gets the most commercial airplay, and quite honestly, I think is overrated. Eruption, which oftentimes is used as one of the greatest guitar solos of all time. You Really Got Me, which I think is really good. Ain't Talking About Love is my favorite off that first album. I'm the One, I think, is really good. Not a big fan of Jamie's Crying. Atomic Punk isn't bad. Feel Your Love Tonight is pretty damn good. Little Drummer, Ice Cream Man, which is kind of funny, and On Fire, which quite honestly I never heard. I probably did when I first bought the album. But this is the one that really kickstarted things for this band that ended up having 12 albums, and I never knew that. First of all, it shows you how difficult it truly is. 11 albums, you wouldn't think for a band that has been around as long as that band has, that 11 albums, 12 albums, you would have thought they would have had more, right? I would have. Especially since the last 3 albums I had never heard of, ever. When you think of them, there's always the debate. Oh, was it David Lee Roth or was it Sammy Hagar? Which one was better? They both had great albums together. Okay, it's a phenomenal band. But really, the last album with David Lee Roth, before Sammy Hagar took over, 5150, was their greatest selling album. The last album with David Lee Roth, I thought, was 1984. That's the one where people love, Jump, Panama, Hot for Teacher, stuff like that. I thought that was it, right? No, it wasn't. See, Sammy Hagar comes in, they record 5150. That's number 1 in the world. Or maybe it was number 2, but I'm pretty sure it was number 1. It might be number 2. I think okay. Number 2. OU 812 followed, which I think is kind of an underrated. They've got some really good ones. And then for unlawful carnal knowledge was in 1991. That's the one with Pound Cake and stuff like that, in case you were wondering. So I thought that was it. They came out with an album in 1995. I had no idea this. I like to consider myself a pretty good, at least historian to a certain extent. Balance. Never heard of it. Sammy Hagar was in that. I don't know if there might be one album or one song, I should say, on that album. Can't Stop Loving You. I thought that was on OU 812. That was on Balance. So I'd never heard of that album. Then in 1998, they came out with Van Halen 3. Never knew that. And that's the one where it was their longest album, and that Eddie Van Halen played bass on all but just a couple of tracks, and that Gary Cherone was the lead singer of that. I knew he was in on an album with them, but I don't know why I thought this. I thought it was before Sammy Hagar. So I don't know one damn song from that Van Halen 3. And then their last album was A Different Kind of Truth that was released in 2012, and David Lee Roth was back on that album. Had no idea. Completely forgot about that. So when people say the last album for David Lee Roth, 1984, nope. That is not true. The last album is a different kind of truth. And there was that was when David Lee Roth came back and Eddie Van Halen went to his son Wolfgang to play bass. Michael Anthony was out. It's kind of a nasty breakup, to be honest with you. Anyway, okay. We were talking about the Super Bowl just before the break and the motivation and so on and so forth. I know how people feel about the Chiefs. I know it got old for people. They were looking for somebody new to root for. They got tired of seeing Taylor Swift. They probably got tired of the State Farm commercials. They got tired of a bunch of different things that highlighted Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, anybody else. Travis Kelce, even though many people are just looking for that clip of him whining, pushing somebody, but he really couldn't push them out of the way. Jordan Davis, for example, could not push him out of the way on the field of play. Social media all over it over the last 2 days about Travis Kelce crying as he left the field. I don't know if he was. I mean, somebody I think is kind of inferring that. The fact that he oftentimes whines. He doesn't do himself any favors, as we saw in the AFC Championship game against Buffalo, how he went into the end zone when Patrick Mahomes slid in for a touchdown and he flopped a little bit. And actually the refs called the penalty on the Buffalo defender rather than Travis Kelce, even though he was chirping at him, even though he was bumping face mask to face mask and taunting him. There was no taunting call on Travis Kelce until after the game when the NFL reviewed it. They actually fined him for taunting. Everybody thought that's a joke, right? Anybody else does that, they get a flag right then and there, but not Travis Kelce. They think there's partial treatment. We've talked about that most of the year. Well, Travis Kelce, for all the negatives surrounding him, and I understand it, okay? He doesn't mind playing the villain. That's the one thing about that dude you can slightly respect. There are certain villains in sports who embrace the black hat. And we have had those villains more than once. Bill Laimbeer was a villain. Rick Mahorn was a villain. Rasheed Wallace was a villain. Bob Probert, Joe Kosar, Darren McCarty. They were villains outside of Detroit. Inside Detroit, they were absolutely embraced and beloved. There are villains. We appreciate that, right? Okay. I don't know. As far as the Lions are concerned, I don't know if they've ever necessarily had one. Benny Blades hit really hard. I'm going deep here. Way back in the day, perhaps Alex Karras, not as much.
What about Kirby Joseph right now?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I was going to say maybe back in the day, not even close to what Dick Butkus and Ray Nitschke were. But some felt like maybe Alex Karras took it a little bit too far. I don't know. Nobody thought that. I don't think of Chris Spielman or Stephen Boyd or players like that. But that's a good one. Kirby Joseph. I don't know if fans recognize that trend, but I do believe players view that. And I think it was pretty evident by some of the Pro Bowl voting or All-Pro voting, right? Fairly or unfairly. I think unfairly. But again, that could be me speaking with my heart. That could be me with the emotional attachment there. We have embraced those villains. Actually, I would argue we're proud of it. How many people do you know back in the day had the poster of Bill Laimbeer squeezing a basketball and Rick Mahorn tugging on a basketball net while both of them were biting on something? I forget exactly what it was.
Wearing sunglasses and all black.
Sunglasses, right. The bad boys. We embraced that. We loved that. They still sell shirts that say Bad Boys of Detroit. And
they got their own logo made.
They didn't just do it within basketball. They parlayed that into the other sports in Detroit, and people embraced it. I mean, they loved it, and we still love it, and that's cool. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I mean, I don't want to – this is a little ridiculous, but there was – when the Detroit Shock of the WNBA played in Detroit with Mahorn and Laimbeer as coaches, they played a much more physical style. Again, that is – I get where it ranks on your Richter scale. I'm just saying, those are the things that we as Michiganders We love that stuff. How much do you love the way Michigan State is physical in basketball? Raise your
Yeah, I
hand.
love it.
Absolutely. Everybody
Love it.
loves it, right? You loved Percy Snow. You loved Aiden Hutchinson. That's fine. You should. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I'm not saying because you liked Bill Laimbeer and Rick Mahorn and Bob Probert and Joey Koser and those guys means that automatically you like Travis Kelce. No, don't take that association. But what I will say is that Kelce embraces the ability to be the bad guy. He accepts it, and he'll take it for the rest of his team. He said this after the Super Bowl, and again, I'm not a huge fan. I think he's one of the best tight ends of all time. He is. Whether you like it or not, it's true. We can debate whether he's better than Tony Gonzalez and some of the other ones, but in your lifetime, I'm pointing to you, Trent, in your lifetime, he's the best you've seen. Now, I would say I like George Kittle a little bit better. He's a different cat, but I like him as a tight end more than Kelce, but you can't deny how good Kelce is.
What about
also
Gronk?
should remember how great Rob Gronkowski was. So when I point to Trent, maybe I'm a little premature there. Maybe it's Rob Gronkowski and then Travis Kelce, because Gronkowski was unbelievable. I mean,
they're undeniably 1 and 2 for my lifetime.
You talk about a guy who just runs people over. People, again, we seem to forget and I said this yesterday, we seem to forget just how great certain players were during their time. Then they retire, they move into some other role, broadcasting, and then we see somebody else who's really good and we think they're the best I've ever seen. And that's how we look. Too many people look at Travis Kelce. They said the same thing about other all-time greats, Ray Lewis. They said that about Ray Lewis as a linebacker, and I thought, hold on a second now. Can we remember, and I brought up a number of different names, it has nothing to do with the greatness of Ray Lewis because he was great, but to say he's the best of all time, he's one of them for sure. We want to rush to judgment as soon as we start watching a player participate in his sport during a certain era. We rush to judgment and say, they've got to be the best I've ever seen. Hold on a second. Just pump the brakes for a moment. So Kelce's probably in that conversation for you, no doubt. But he said this, and I give him a lot of credit. We couldn't get it going offensively. They just got after us in all three phases. And then on top of that, the turnovers, the penalties, playing behind the sticks on offense, dropped passes. Some of those passes were from Patrick Mahomes were terrible. He didn't say that. I said that. Not taking advantage of the play call and executing them. There's a lot that goes into it. You don't lose like that without everything going bad. We haven't played that bad all year. Look, it's very small consolation. I'm not asking you or saying this for you to like him. I'm just saying at least the dude owns it. When we have mentioned Kansas City, and I bet you years down the road, when you're having this conversation with friends and you're looking back at the great Super Bowl teams, the great Super Bowl runs of certain specific teams, there is an identity oftentimes associated with teams that are champions or teams that are close to being champions. There is. Look at, I just mentioned the Bad Boys. What was the identity? Physicality. That was the identity, right? My hope is that most people don't take Michael Jordan's identity of Detroit. They took Detroit's identity from themselves, all right? When you looked at the Pistons championship run in 06 or 04 with Ben Wallace, what was the identity? Okay, it was physicality, but it was defense primarily, right? I mean, beating the Lakers the way they did, pretty impressive. I think a lot of teams have some type of association, especially from those people who aren't following them all. You and I could name every player on that team, but people outside of Detroit may have even forgotten that they were that good that season and beating the Lakers in the finals. But how do they remember them? Okay, the identity that you certain teams have that. I mean, that's kind of been one of my arguments always when younger people say that's the best Pistons team, and I say it was, you know, the other championship era, and people will say, yeah, well, this, that, and the other thing about that Ben Wallace led team, and I'll say, well, hold on a second. people outside of Detroit, they'll always remember the Bad Boys. It's a basketball staple. Whether you liked it or not, it's a basketball staple. There are the great Lakers teams, the great Celtics teams, the great Bulls teams, yes. And when you win, 6 championships, 3 in a row, 2 different times over an 8-year period, there's something to be said for that. But Detroit is in that conversation. They're in that conversation. People will always remember that team. Certain other teams, you're like, okay, Dallas won. All right. I mean, people remember Golden State too, right? But the one-offs, the teams that are one-offs, it's oftentimes forgotten. It is by people outside of that particular market. This Kansas City team, their identity, oftentimes, I believe, will be shaped by the fact that they were helped by referees. That's what people believe. I don't believe that. They won 17 straight one-possession games, which I believe is an NFL record. Blows my mind that they were able to do that. It wasn't necessarily comfortable. That's how people view them. I doubt the people in Kansas City view them that way, but I think that's how people who follow football view them. The one thing you can say about them, at least in this instance, is that they own it. No excuses. And teams that have that negative moniker that this team had coming into the Super Bowl wouldn't necessarily own it. So I'll give them a little bit of credit in that regard. I was giddy that Philadelphia won. Not that I have any dog in this hunt, but I picked Philadelphia. I was rooting for Philadelphia. But I do give Kansas City a lot more credit than I think a lot of people do. Especially the people I was watching the game with the other night, when they're sitting here making every excuse in the book on why they think Kansas City's going to win before they even kick it off because of the whole conspiracy theory crap. It's stunning to me. Are they willing to give them credit? Probably not. I am, even though I don't necessarily like them. 3 words used to describe the Detroit Lions from 2025. ESPN.com had an interesting article about this. They have ranked the preseason favorites for next year. Again, not gospel. We say this all the time. It's not gospel. But it's interesting where they have the Lions. You might be a little surprised at that. We will discuss that and get your 3 words to describe them for 2025 when we come back on X's and Bros. This hour of our program, proudly brought to you by our friends at Pharaoh's Coffee. Ironically enough, the official coffee maker of the Detroit Lions in 2024 and 2025.
Coming right at you, the excitement you've been waiting for. Eagle Casino and Sports, the mobile casino made in Michigan, made for Michigan. Play slots and table games with live dealers at one exciting site, playeagle.com. Sign up today and get a match deposit up to $1,500. That's right, up to $1,500 plus 100 free spins. Eagle Casino and Sports. Go to playeagle.com and start winning today. Must be 21 or older and in Michigan to play.
Huge here for the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You can stay up to date on the latest from Lansing 24/7 at MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. The latest news, press releases, and stories connected to every high school in the state of Michigan, available for you 24/7 from the Michigan High School Athletic Association. Log on to MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. And if you're looking for archive, boys and girls, high school sports, MHSAA.TV. That's MHSAA.TV. 24/7, everything you need to know about high school sports in Michigan. Log on to MHSAA.com.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at freddythepizzaman.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit freddythepizzaman.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
Valentine's Day is a good deal sweeter when you shop at Meijer. This week, select bag Valentine's Day candy is buy one, get one 50% off. Fresh from Meijer chocolate dipped strawberries are just $9.99. Certified Angus beef New York strip steak is $11.99 a pound. And our floral department is overflowing with beautiful fresh Valentine's Day bouquets and flower arrangements. Count on Meijer to bring more from the heart to Valentine's Day. Exclusions apply. See all deals in-store, in the Meijer app, and online at Meijer.com.
At Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, the legendary Tower of Power. Down to the nightclub. Saturday night, March 8th, and same show, same night. It's more. Tickets start at $47 and are on sale now at the box office at etix.com. Get yourself to Bump City. March 8th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. War and Tower of Power. SoaringEagleCasino.com.
Attention Michigan fans, it isn't a Michigan game day without a Michigan-made beer. Founders Brewing Company, a proud supporter of the University of Michigan Athletics Department, has the perfect beer for you with their Michigan Pilsner. Crafted with only the best locally sourced Michigan hops and the highest quality ingredients to deliver a smooth, crisp taste. Upgrade your game day traditions with their easy drinking Michigan Pilsner. Founders Brewing Company, proud sponsor of Michigan Athletics. Welcome to Craft.
Best three-man band ever. Go. These guys got to be in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like
Nirvana. That's more my style, but
okay.
Rush.
Okay.
Yeah, Rush is probably the right answer. I'm not going to argue with you
Well,
there.
I don't know if there's a right answer, but they're in the discussion, right?
For sure.
Sounds like 5 guys in the band, doesn't it?
That's Geddy Lee.
Yeah, Geddy Lee can play the bass, and he plays the synthesizer / piano, whatever you want to call it. The drums make it sound bigger than it really is. Just because Neil Peart, I think, is the greatest drummer of all time, just my opinion. And I think Alex Lifeson is a underrated lead guitarist. They were an amazing band. One of my favorite bands all time, and ironically enough, 3-man, and ironically enough from Canada, Triumph. Love them. Welcome back. X's and Bros. Michigan against Purdue tonight, number 20 against number 7. Boilermakers blew them out by 27 just a couple of weeks ago at Mackey Arena. Is Purdue right now leads the Big Ten by a half game over MSU and Michigan? Are they the best team in the Big Ten, do you think? Like I think it was last week we had the text I think it was a poll question. We had a poll question. Who's Michigan State's biggest threat? Purdue won that poll question contest, if you will. And then it was Michigan. It was Purdue, then Michigan. But now you look at it, and granted, it's just a half-game lead. I bet you Michigan wins tonight. Wouldn't surprise me. Now, they didn't play great against Oregon at home, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that's kind of the way the Big Ten is.
Right.
Do you think Purdue's the best team in the Big Ten?
Right now, why not? Why not give him that respect? You and I talked how about Braden Smith, how he's kind of been laying in the weeds and just quietly might be the Big Ten Player of the Year.
Yeah, probably should be.
So yeah, they're a hell of a team.
I think it's fun to watch right now when you see how good Michigan and Michigan State is. Why don't they get enough ink?
Well, I think because Michigan State, until Michigan State lost back-to-back, I mean, they were on their way to climbing into the top 5.
I'm referring to local.
Purdue?
I'm sorry. Michigan and Michigan State. Why are more people not talking about how good the college basketball landscape is in the state of Michigan right now with the two Big Ten teams?
Well, it might be because of their 2 fatal flaws. They each have one that you and I have talked about all season. Michigan State can't shoot the 3, and Michigan turns the ball over a lot. And those are 2 really heavy.
What's the fatal flaw of Purdue?
Good question. I don't know. I haven't watched them close enough. Have to tune in tonight.
Can I give you my theory?
Yeah, of course.
Because we've been talking Lions, because the Pistons are more enjoyable to watch.
They have a pulse for the first time in years.
Because the Red Wings have found a groove under a new head coach. And because this is probably 4th on the list, it's spring training is right around the corner. I think the Lions have dominated everything. And rightfully so, by the way. We're guilty of this. I'm not blaming other people. I'm throwing myself into this mix, okay? Haven't talked nearly enough about the talent that Michigan and Michigan State possess. And Michigan State's been, for the most part, top 15 almost all year. They're really flipping good, man. And I think maybe they don't mind it. Maybe they're focused a little bit more on this at, let's say, 7:30 the score in Lansing, because they're more Lansing-centric. And I'll say again, call myself out. We don't talk enough about them. These 2 teams are fun to watch, but they're also very good. Like, you can be fun to watch. The Pistons are fun to watch. Do you honestly believe they're a threat in the division? Obviously not with Cleveland or Milwaukee. But do you believe they're a threat in the division or the threat in the conference? Or are you just happy because they're so much better than they were a year ago? I don't care about last year. I don't know about you. To me, that's not a barometer, dude. So I get tired of hearing people say, well, you know what? They've already had more wins than they had all of last year. They've already got more wins than they had in each of the last X amount of years. Or they've got, they led wire to wire 3 times this year, something that they haven't done but 3 times in the combined last 5 seasons. I don't care about any of that. I really don't. Love watching Cade Cunningham play. Yes, Freddie's going to hate me for this. I like watching Jalen Dern. I think the additions that Trajan Langdon has made with Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Tobias Harris has been really fun to watch. I know they've got a little bit of a ways to go. I know people love the attitude that they have. Fine. They're not winning anything, at least in my mind. I can enjoy their games more, but I don't think they're winning anything. Michigan and Michigan State have a chance to win. Now, we can debate whether they're national championship contenders. I would just remind you that it is college basketball and strange things happen. Case in point, Kentucky losing again last night, and they're ranked 8th in the country. Case in point, Duke losing at Clemson over the weekend, and they were ranked 2nd in the country. These things change. All I hear from Michigan State friends, primarily because a lot of my friends in my area are Michigan State fans. I don't know many Michigan fans, and we're going to talk with Terry Mills tomorrow about this, who feel the same way, or who don't feel the same way, I should say. But my Michigan State friends are like, it's not like they're going to win the national championship. And all I say to them is, why? They won 13 in a row at one point. I don't give a crap who you're playing. That's hard to do. So I asked them, why? They can't give me a reason. And perhaps it's because, as a buddy of mine told me last night, many Michigan State fans look at it and say, been there, done that. And I said, what do you mean, been there, done that? Well, you know how it happens. And then what do? They fall into the trap of what we say all the time. They play a tough non-conference schedule. They get better as the season goes along. And then they're ready for the NCAA tournament. And then they may make the Sweet 16 and then fizzle out before the Elite 8. Unable to make the Elite 8. Like, wait, hold on a second. Yes, they play a tough schedule. If they got better as the season wore on, why did they have a 13-game winning streak and then a 2-game slide? That's not getting better, is it? So stop with the whole, this is the way it always goes kind of crap. And just so you know, if it's that, then where's the superstar? Because they've always had at least that one guy, whoever that one guy may be. I don't care if it's Draymond Green. I don't care if it's Cassius Winston. You can go on and on and on. So I don't buy into that narrative. Watch them play and tell me you feel on a neutral site that you wouldn't have confidence that your team would be right there with some of the other teams. Now, do I think they're as balanced and talented as Alabama or maybe a Tennessee? Probably not. But would I count them out automatically on a neutral site game against one of those teams? No. I wouldn't. It doesn't mean I favor them in an NCAA tournament poll because they're in the area. They're a team that we talk about or cover, but give me a break, man. Watch college basketball, watch the landscape, and tell me the team that is unbeatable. And I'll find you a liar because you don't have one right now.
Well, you just made a great point. Duke lost over the weekend. They have seemingly one of the best players in the country, Cooper Flagg, right?
Oh, I think he's the best player.
Auburn got thrashed around by Florida, and I know Florida's another good team. But you're
really good.
And there's really no world beater this year. There's no UConn from 2 years ago.
Right. I mean, people look at it and they go, okay, Michigan State's got 4 losses. Oh, God forbid. I mean, they're 19-4. Oh, is there an undefeated team somewhere that I'm unaware of? Not that I can recall. I'll have to look that up. Auburn's really good. I mean, they've been at the top for 5 straight weeks now. They're really good. I'll be the first to admit I don't like them because I don't like Bruce Pearl. But
you're not alone in that.
Yeah, I know. But and they cause some problems. Yes. The Big Ten doesn't get really much love at all when it comes to the national landscape. It's about the SEC right now. Just wondering. Just some thoughts that popped into my head. Speaking of that, a former Spartan got a big compliment. We'll play that when we come back. Plus, we want to dive back into ESPN's thoughts on the power rankings before we even get to next year regarding the National Football League. That's coming up after this here on X's and Bros in this hour, proudly brought to you by our friends at Meijer.
Valentine's Day is a good deal sweeter when you shop at Meijer. This week, select bagged Valentine's Day candy is buy one, get one 50% off. Fresh from Meijer chocolate dipped strawberries are just $9.99. Certified Angus beef New York strip steak is $11.99 a pound. And our floral department is overflowing with beautiful fresh Valentine's Day bouquets and flower arrangements. Count on Meijer to bring more from the heart to Valentine's Day. Exclusions apply. See all deals in-store, in the Meijer app, and online at Meijer.com.
You've heard him on Kill Tony, the #1 live podcast in the world.
He's always working on our craft, macaroni and cheese.
Friday, March 14th, Tony Hinchcliffe at Soaring Eagle.
Your blood type is delicious.
Tickets start at $72 and are on sale now at the box office or etix.com. Check out the hottest comedy of 2025, Tony Hinchcliffe. March 14th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Relax, I only have so much time. I'm killing too hard.
More at SoaringEagleCasino.com.
What's up, Michigan? You're listening to Shep. Don't forget the huge show later today at 3 on the Michigan Sports Network.
Coming right at you, the excitement you've been waiting for. Eagle Casino and Sports, the mobile casino made in Michigan, made for Michigan. Play slots and table games with live dealers at one exciting site, PlayEagle.com. Sign up today and get a match deposit up to $1,500. That's right, up to $1,500 plus 100 free spins. Eagle Casino and Sports. Go to PlayEagle.com and start winning today. Must be 21 or older and in Michigan to play.
thought that was Doug Christie's son for like years. I would clarify that with him, and they're not related. But same measurables, 6'6" off guard. So, I mean, I've been incredibly impressed with Max. What a great addition. I mean, I've had great success with Michigan State guys in my career, and he's just another one. They come in, they know how to defend, they are team players, and he has such a bright future in this league.
How cool is that? That's Klay Thompson. Dallas was a 1-point loser to Sacramento last night. Obviously, no Anthony Davis. Thompson ended up with 19. Kyrie Irving, who was recently added to the All-Star team with Trae Young, had 30. And Max Christie off the bench had 15 in 35 minutes, 5 for 10, 3 for 7 from deep. Kind of a nice compliment to a guy who was started playing basketball, I believe, at the age of 1, Max Christie, former McDonald's All-American, obviously All-Stater, finished his high school career with more than 2,000 points, which is pretty damn good, was a 5-star recruit, one of the top players in the country, could have gone just about anywhere, and went to MSU and is now playing in Dallas. I wanted people to hear that because I think it's it's one thing when we say it about a certain player. It's another thing if their coach says it about their player. What coach, when a kid reaches the highest level at whatever, how many coaches are not going to say, well, he was a great player and he was a hell of a team player and I loved coaching him. Usually that bond is there and stays there for a long period of time. There are exceptions. I get it. But when somebody else says that about you in an early impression now, okay, and he was great in his first game as a Dallas Maverick, but in his first game or early tenure with that team, and think about this. Klay Thompson thought Max Christie was Doug Christie's son. and he's not, obviously. I believe his father was in the Army. I could be wrong there. His great grandfather was. His father actually played basketball at Wisconsin Superior. His mom scored over 1,000 points at Northwestern, believe it or not. Anyway, Max Christie was seen as that guy. Klay Thompson barely knew him. He's been around him for a week. He's played 2 games with him. And this is what he's already recognized. He doesn't need to call Tom Izzo or anybody on that staff to see if Max Christie's going to fit. He already has recognized it. And on top of that, he says that about the Michigan State basketball program. That's really cool. For one of the all-time great shooters, where he ranks, we can debate. Is he a Hall of Famer? In all likelihood. And that's what he says about your program. And I think most of that is associated with Draymond Green. But when he says, I've had great success with former Michigan State players, he has that. And he recognizes that about him individually. That's a hell of an impression. So good for Max Christie. And a guy who probably lost in the shuffle of all this. When we first started talking about the Luka Doncic trade to Los Angeles, what did we say? We just kept saying over and over again, it's Anthony Davis, it's Luka Doncic. Max Christie's a big part of that. He's a young guy. He's going to be with that team for a while, they hope, and be a valuable member of that team. Now, I'm not saying he's going to have the impact, or they're expecting the impact that equates to Anthony Davis and Luka Doncic, but a big deal, right? Pretty cool stuff. All right, let's get to this. We've got 3 texts that we want to get to. So fire away with the texts, and then at the bottom of the hour, we'll get back into a little football discussion and some troubling numbers associated with Big Ten athletic programs. That's coming up here on X's and Bros. Fire away.
We have a couple of people chiming in on our discussion about villains in Detroit. Someone says, what about Ndamukong Suh?
Oh, good one. Really good one. Yep. Here's the difference, I think, with Ndamukong. That's an excellent one. Here's the difference with Ndamukong Suh. I think there's a lot of people in Detroit and the state of Michigan. When he was first drafted out of Nebraska, people were giddy. as his Lions career went on, I think people found him to be almost annoying. I don't think they didn't embrace him nearly as much as they did the other villains in this town. And perhaps it's because those other villains had long tenures. But Ndamukong Suh was a homegrown guy. And I think people were put off that he wasn't willing to sign the extension in his fourth year. But even before then, I got the sense that people felt like, look, he's a great player, but I don't know if he's one of us. That was my sense in hosting shows back then. And look, I called Lions preseason games on TV for him. I traveled with them. I knew him pretty well. I said this ad nauseum about Ndamukong Suh. You cannot like him. He's not the most friendly guy there is. Actually, one of the longest conversations I had with him was actually in Bloomfield. Saw him at dinner at a place called BrO's on Maple Road in Telegraph. And I went up to him and we started talking and actually introduced my family to him. Could not have been more cordial, right? During his playing and while I was covering him, it was at times a little confrontationalist, if there is such a word, some confrontation, at times very defensive. I remember asking him a question and he said, well, sir, if you followed me, and afterwards I said to him, I go, you know I've followed you, right? I mean, you know that I've been here every day at practice and you and I have talked once a week. He's like, yeah, I know. I said, then please don't do that. I mean, that's just, it's small. I mean, it's ridiculous. So we had a good conversation about that at his locker one time. He was not very approachable, but he was a badass. And the thing I've always said about him, you may not like him, but he shows up and he practices hard and he plays his ass off. I liked him as a Lions player. I'm not saying I would have him for Christmas dinner, but as a player, you're damn right I would want him on my team. Was he dirty? Yeah, he was dirty at times, stepping on guys and things like that. I didn't like it. It is rather hypocritical when Bill Laimbeer steps on Larry Bird's chest or whoever it was with the Celtics when they were laying down. I don't know if it was Dennis Johnson. I forget exactly who it was now. And we thought it was funny. And Ndamukong Suh does it in a much more physical sport. Not that there's any excuse for it, but we're like, oh, come on, that crosses the line, man. Suddenly we get this morality beam of light upon us, and we can't, for any possible reason, think that it's okay with him. But somebody else who we really liked, punish him when he's coming down the lane. Fight him in the corner. It's Ty Domi again. Let's get after it, right? Go ahead and beat him because he hit one of our guys. But Ndamukong Suh, no, I'm sorry. We've got to draw a line somewhere. It was very interesting how we chose our battles there. All right, next text. That's a really good one. He did wear the black hat, and he wore it proudly, not just with Detroit, but Miami and Tampa and other places that he played. Go ahead.
Another submission is Dominic Raiola.
Ooh, yeah.
I like that one. That's a little off the board, but I like it.
I didn't think about that. That's a good one. That's a really good one. Thank you for that. Yeah. Again, I remember I was doing sidelines for TV during the preseason. We were in Cincinnati. It's a preseason game. And Dominic Raiola, people were just, the stuff they were saying to him was, I could never repeat on the air. But I remember him turning around and chirping right back. He wasn't afraid to give it back. At the end of the game, he took a football and he signed it. And he took it to a little kid in the front row and gave it to him. And I thought, all these people around him are screaming at him, calling him every name you could possibly call somebody, and saying different things about people who are close to him. All these things. And what does he do at the end of the game? There's a big heart in there somewhere. But you're right. He wasn't afraid to wear the black hat either. And he did it not just with opposing fan bases. He did it with this fan base. There's a little respect there, I would think, from a lot of people. That's a really good one. I did not think of that one. I appreciate it. Always appreciate the text. We'll get to more on the other side. This hour of X's and Bros, proudly brought to you by our friends at Meyer.
Friday, April 4th at Soaring Eagle Casino. Los Lobos and Los Lonely Boys. The Brotherhood Tour. Tickets start at $47 and are on sale now at the Soaring Eagle box office and etix.com. April 4th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. East LA meets Texican. The Brotherhood Tour. Los Lobos and Los Lonely Boys. SoaringEagleCasino.com.
What's up, Michigan? You're listening to my good friend Shep. The Huge Show is coming up later today at 3, right here on the Michigan Sports Network.
Valentine's Day is a good deal sweeter when you shop at Meijer. This week, select bagged Valentine's Day candy is buy one, get one 50% off. Fresh from Meijer chocolate dipped strawberries are just $9.99. Certified Angus beef New York strip steak is $11.99 a pound. And our floral department is overflowing with beautiful fresh Valentine's Day bouquets and flower arrangements. Count on Meijer to bring more from the heart to Valentine's Day. Exclusions apply. See all deals in-store, in the Meijer app, and online at Meijer.com.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at freddythepizzaman.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit freddythepizzaman.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
Here's my question, real quick. One of many that I have for you every morning. If rock and roll is dead, why are they using so many rock and roll songs in TV commercials, like old commercials or old songs? Did you see the commercial for Super Bowl? It was I think it was for Dodge Ram truck. They used Van Halen, Panama. There's another commercial out there for a car, and they're using AC/DC.
There was the Super Bowl commercial. I think it was the NFL commercial promoting women's football, and they used "Rock You Like a Hurricane" by the Scorpions.
Did they?
Yes. That was fun to hear that song. You're right, though, Shep. Yeah, rock and roll maybe is making a comeback.
I don't even know if it's making a comeback.
I'm hoping it is.
They're using those great songs because they've got great riffs, obviously, and they've got great energy to them. I don't know why they're not even close to being on the NFL list for Super Bowl halftime performances. It's amazing to me, especially since the great all-time performances. What you see leading up into the Super Bowl is the best of all time prior to the year that you're seeing. So I don't think anybody will have a greater rendition of the national anthem than Whitney Houston.
Probably correct.
Marvin Gaye at the NBA All-Star game, I believe, maybe it was the NBA championships, I think, but I'm pretty sure it was the All-Star game, was amazing too. But it was a much more mellower, rhythmic. It was just beautifully sung. The way she sang it gave you goosebumps. First of all, one of the greatest voices of all time. Not that I listen to that type of music. It's not like I'm going to watch The Bodyguard. I'm just telling you, there are some things that she possessed that not many on this earth ever did. I mean, her range, and I'm no voice expert, but her range and her power, it's mind blowing. What a gift she had. It's really too bad that it happened. Her life ended the way it did. But some of the best halftime performances of all time, whether it be, I like the Stones a lot, The Who, Prince was fantastic. And I don't know what the NFL, when you see all these companies using rock and roll, are they afraid, do you think, to use these bands? Or maybe they just think they're too old and there's been nobody who's come up to be big enough to carry that torch. It could be. I'm not positive. I'm not asking them to go out and have Anti-Ghost perform. I'm just wondering where's the next generation of rock and roll bands? And hey, would it be a problem if they had the Foo Fighters? Like, why wouldn't you? They're pretty appealing, don't you think, to a lot of different
crowd favorite for
ages.
sure.
Yeah, right. Anyway, I digress. Speaking of the Super Bowl, we'll get to this coming up here. ESPN Plus had the teams who would be favored for next year. I thought it was, the power rankings, all this stuff that comes out way too early. I was really surprised at the first and surprised where the Lions are. And I want to get your take on it too. But first, let's finish up some text. So fire away. Go ahead.
Modern villain, Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't think he's a fake tough guy by any stretch.
No, he's not.
I wouldn't put him in the same category as Rick Mahorn, Wes Unseld, Xavier McDaniel, Charles Oakley, Anthony Mason. He's not even close to those guys. Those guys were serious tough guys who, by the way, also had game. Especially Wes Unseld. And I had this discussion last week. I had the privilege of talking with one of the greatest players of all time, George Gervin. So he and I did something together, and we were talking about some of those badasses back in the day. I think Isaiah Stewart, he's a tough guy. It's interesting in today's NBA. This is a great conversation. I'm glad our texter brought that up because I didn't think about it. Back in the day, we could rattle off all these different tough dudes. And I know the game is different. I'm not saying it was better back then. Okay? I'm just bringing up a fact. There were Billy badasses back then. Jeff Rulin was a badass. Okay? Dan Issel to a certain extent. I mean, these people could play, but they were tough as all get out. Charles Barkley, he obviously a great player. He was a badass. Shaquille O'Neal, granted, big dude, but there's been plenty of big guys, Chuck Nevin, who weren't real great as being tough. He was a badass. Where are they today? Give me, I know somebody said Isaiah Stewart, so it's a good one. Who's the Billy Badass of the NBA today?
There isn't one. I mean,
I'm
if
serious. I want you to think about it. Think about the tough guy in the NBA. And again, I'm not saying this has got to be, the UCF. All right. I'm not going there. I'm
relative to this era of basketball,
wondering who in hockey, it really never leaves, even though the NHL stupidly tries to peel that part of the sport back. It's moronic. People like that part of the sport.
Oh, they love
police themselves. It's okay. And I'm not saying you promote it for every video game or every commercial or every promotion that goes on your, TNT or ESPN or whatever. But it's okay to show it once in a while. Don't be shy about it. The NBA obviously doesn't want to do that. The NBA wants to showcase 3-point shooting and high-flying dunking down the middle of the lane and all these other things. Who's the bad dude in the NBA today? There isn't one.
Yeah,
what do you go by? You don't go by ejections, okay? More coaches get ejected than players. It's which is interesting, I find. But who is? Think about it for a second. Just give me one besides Isaiah Stewart.
I'd say Draymond Green, and that's not just because he's a Spartan. I mean, he's not in his prime anymore, but he's still an enforcer. He's a tough guy. I don't think it's a fake tough guy by any stretch.
I think he's more of a chirper. I don't think.
What about Dylan Brooks? Is that all chirp, all bark?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. I'm just throwing it out there. What about a guy like Marcus Smart?
These are good suggestions. They really are. I mean, you've come up with two names that I think other people would bring up. I don't look at them like that, but okay. I mean, you got a lot of guys who are willing. I don't know if it's compared to Larry Bird talking smack, but you have a lot of guys who talk a lot of crap out there. That's fine.
Right.
But I don't know of anybody who's. I was going to say Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler is probably in that conversation. Anthony Edwards also talks a lot, backs it up.
Well, I wasn't saying talking. I'm talking about the tough guy aspect. Jimmy Butler is probably close to that. Other than that,
I'll agree with you.
And I think you're right about people would look at Draymond Green like that. I went to when somebody said Isaiah Stewart, I went to Indiana because of the battle the two teams have had. I can't think of anybody who's on another team that makes you go, oh, be careful going down the lane, man. The dude's going to hammer you. I just don't see that. And I'm not saying that the league is worse off because of it. I just don't view Evan Mobley as that guy who's going to intimidate you down the middle of the lane like they used to in a different era.
Correct. And that's really the answer to the question. I mean, you said there's really no guys like Wes Unseld and Rick Mahorn.
No, I mean, I don't think there ever will be. I'm wondering when it shifted. Like even Patrick Ewing, he's not backing down from anybody. He's a tough dude. I mean, these guys, when I say backing down, these guys are making a physical play, and instead of backing up when you come toward them, they go toward you. In today's NBA, guy comes toward you, those guys back up. It's a good one. Any more texts?
Yes, we did get one about Jalen Duren, and I think I know who sent this, which is okay. But they said, Shep, when you're watching Jalen Duren, make sure you watch him versus really bad teams and teams that have stretch fours. Since they can't play defense, I think that's a typo. Since he can't play offense, he gets those rebounds down low because the stretch is out shooting threes. Just a theory from a texter here.
Yeah, pretty good idea of who that texter is. Look, and that's fine. Okay, I'm not. I don't mind watching. I like watching him because I think he's athletic. I know there are holes in his game. I would argue that there are holes in everybody's game. Okay, and I'm not making excuses for him. But I think we get caught up in certain guys who we've already made our minds up. and this goes back to what I've said all the time. What do I say? Really hard to change your mind. I am not suggesting he's an all-star. I'm not suggesting he's untouchable. I'm not suggesting he's a leader on this team. All I'm asking you is to be fair. It's okay to be fair. So when a guy has a good game, 16-13 against Dallas, is Dallas a good team? They're not a great team. I'm asking, are they a good team?
Yes.
Okay. Is Indiana a good team?
Yes.
So if a guy had 14-10 against the Pacers, would that be decent?
That'd be good enough for me.
Okay. If a guy had 12-16 against the best team in the East, is that enough for you?
Very good.
Considering who he is.
Yeah, and considering who you're playing, like you're bringing
He's
up.
not
Yes.
taking high-volume shots. He's not Cade Cunningham. I don't want him to be. He went 6 for 11 against Cleveland. He had a double-double against Cleveland. Now, the texter is probably going, well, that's a select game. You asked me to look at how he did against certain teams. And you can't always take their bottom line because maybe some of it was garbage at the end. I don't remember the game, okay? Maybe it was garbage at the end. Maybe he wasn't moving his feet well enough for you defensively. Maybe there's something there. I'll grant you that. But if I'm willing to do that, can you grant me a little bit in saying at times he's been a little bit more consistent this year? Why is that so hard for you to admit? You know why? Because when you watch that team, you watch him and you look for his flaws to highlight them rather than watch him and give him the benefit of the doubt. He's not going to change your mind. You've already made up your mind that even though he's a young man, still a young dude, and he's 21 years old. That's all he is. He's 21 and he'll be 22 in November of 2025. And you think he should be the second coming of Ralph Sampson. And he's not going to be. You're going to be disappointed. Moving forward, no matter what, you're going to be disappointed. I don't know what the bar is for you with him, but if you think somehow, some way, he's going to be another Kevin McHale or Akeem Olajuwon, you're going to be strongly disappointed. All I'm asking you to do is try, and it's hard for me too, so I'm not calling just you out, try to have an open mind when you watch him. I have to do the same for Gleyber Torres for the Tigers this year. Instead of only focusing on the balls that he doesn't get to at second base or swinging and missing at another off-speed pitch out of the zone, I'm going to try my best to say he's doing this better than I thought he would. Can you do that? The texter cannot do that with Jalen Duren. Even, and I'll tell you how I know, because when he does play well, and he has played well quite a bit this year, again, not as often as you'd like, when he does play well, you're silent. Absolutely silent. So that's how I know it's almost impossible for you to, like, you think I get caught up, well, he had a really good game against Charlotte. I just gave you a couple of examples against some really good teams. Now, he hasn't been, again, he has not been as consistent as you would like. If you think he's going to be at 25 points per game score, that's not who he is. There are a lot of limitations in his game. Yes, we can both agree on that. But at least I can admit the dude has had some good games this year, and he has been part of the reason, not as big a part as Cade Cunningham, but part of the reason on why this team is better this year.
And I think he has a very clear role on the team. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but I mean, he's a rim running center. He's a good rebounder. I think he's an above average rim protector. And for me, that's a very serviceable center in the NBA. He gives you a double-double almost every night.
Well, the texter brings up the stretch forward. I think that's a really good point. That's not who he is.
Yeah, you would love for him to be able to shoot.
What is it you expect from him for the type of player that he is. Like, you've recognized him for a few years now, what he is. I actually give him a lot of credit for accepting the role. A lot of guys try to play outside of who they are. Recognize who you are, okay? He's recognized that, and he plays to that strength. I would like to see his offensive game grow. I think he has room for it to grow. You think this is who he is at the age of 21. I think he can evolve. Perhaps that's part of the difference, too. Let's get to this. Any more texts?
Yeah, one more quick one. Just rolled in. Says, was Ron Artest a tough guy or just crazy? And then he follows that up with, I miss a tough guard like Joe Dumars.
Well, that's a really good one. Thank you for that. I think Ron Artest was a tough guy. I think he was crazy, too. I think he's both. Okay?
All the above.
And Joe Dumars was the ultimate, because even opposing fan bases, Boston, Los Angeles, Chicago, Indiana, didn't matter. They may not, like, they hated Isaiah Thomas. They hated Rick Mahorn. They hated Bill Laimbeer. But the one thing that they did do is they really liked Joe Dumars. They respected of how great a player he was at both ends. And he was a great defensive player. Now, it helped to be on the front of Sports Illustrated with him with his legs crossed and his hand holding Michael Jordan's head down a little bit in a make-believe little bit of it was almost AI before it was AI, him with his hand down and Michael Jordan's underneath it, because he's a great defensive player against Michael Jordan and the Bulls. And it proved to be correct. So could be, but it was legitimate. He was that good of a player. And I think he was, to be honest with you, I think he was underrated offensively. Now, I think people back in those days, even though they may not have liked the team, I think they really appreciated Joe Dumars. So if you went around to fan bases around the country, and I know people in Boston felt this way, if you said, hey, who's the one Piston you'd like to have, even though you hate most of them, they would say Joe Dumars. So Joe Dumars was tough as it got, mentally and physically, and just a rock solid player and a really good dude too. From the time that he was here, both as a player and as a general manager. There's a couple of things that I didn't agree with, but overall, really, really good, and proud that he was a Piston. Our phone number, by the way, the Meyer hotline is 866-838-4843. The text line is Sports Radio to 21,000. Some great texts this morning. I do want to get to these power rankings, and we'll do that when we come back. We've got a lot to get to, including a manager who might be getting caught up in the emotional part of things as well, with a certain player that he has on his team. And I do, if we have time, I want to get into some troubling numbers associated with the Big Ten athletic departments. All that coming up in the final hour of X's and Bros. The second hour of our program is brought to you by Meyer.
It's time to go on the court with Tim Stout.
It's a new day to celebrate and be free. It's a new day full of action and excitement because it's a day for winning. Only at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. It's a new day. Visit SoaringEagleCasino.com. Tom Izzo has now tied Bob Knight of Indiana for the most wins in Big Ten basketball history conference games. Perhaps it's ironic that the record likely is going to be broken with a 9 o'clock Tuesday night game in the Breslin Center against Indiana. The Hoosiers are playing it out under lame duck coach Mike Woodson, who's out at the end of the year. Indiana coming off a loss at home to Michigan. They'll be cannon fodder, or so many would expect, in the game Tuesday night. Then Michigan State has a couple of days to prepare for a big one. That one is at Illinois on Saturday night. Illinois has been up and down since his 2-point loss in the Breslin Center. Michigan State clearly looking for 2 big wins this week.
Huge here for the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You can stay up to date on the latest from Lansing 24/7 at MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. The latest news, press releases, and stories connected to every high school in the state of Michigan, available for you 24/7 from the Michigan High School Athletic Association. Log on to MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. And if you're looking for archive boys and girls High School Sports, MHSAA.TV. That's MHSAA.TV. 24/7, everything you need to know about high school sports in Michigan. Log on to MHSAA.com.
At Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, the legendary Tower of Power.
Down to the nightclub.
Saturday night, March 8th, and same show, same night. It's War. Tickets start at $47 and are on sale now at the box office and etix.com. Get yourself to Bump City. March 8th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, War and Tower of Power. SoaringEagleCasino.com.
Valentine's Day is a good deal sweeter when you shop at Meijer. This week, select bag Valentine's Day candy is buy one, get one 50% off. Fresh from Meijer chocolate dipped strawberries are just $9.99. Certified Angus beef New York strip steak is $11.99 a pound. And our floral department is overflowing with beautiful fresh Valentine's Day bouquets and flower arrangements. Count on Meijer to bring more from the heart to Valentine's Day. Exclusions apply. See all deals in-store, in the Meijer app, and online at Meijer.com.
What's up, Michigan? You're listening to my good friend Shep. The Huge Show is coming up later today at 3, right here on the Michigan Sports Network.
Get some facts and come back and see me. Get some facts and come back and see me. Don't throw out salaries or other things. Get some facts and come back and see me.
You can't handle the truth.
I told our players, you need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here. Yeah, looking in the mirror. Do I look good? I got my extra bands on. I got my other shoes on. Be a dog. We don't need no meow.
Be a
we don't
dog.
need no cats. We need more dogs.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
We weren't good. There's no sense asking me things about the game. I'm telling you, we laid an egg, so I'm not going to break it down for you. We sucked. We sucked. We laid an egg. That's all I have to say, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not going to break it down for you. Nothing went well for us. It's on us. We have to figure it out, and we will.
It's showtime. Good discussion so far here on X's and Bros. Glad you've been part of it here on a Tuesday morning. We're with you Monday through Friday, 6 until 9 throughout the great state of Michigan. Thanks for listening, whether it be in Lansing and on WVFN AM, 730 The Score. Always good to have those folks on board. In Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo and Holland, serving WMAX 96.1 FM, The Game in Cadillac, WKAD, The Ticket 93.7 FM, in Petoskey and Charlevoix, WMBN 104.7, The Ticket Northern Michigan in Traverse City, WKAD 93.7 FM, The Ticket. We are also streaming on X at XB Mornings and on Facebook and YouTube at X's and Bros. Our poll question for the day is pretty simple. Have the Tigers done enough in the offseason to win the division? Yes or no. Vote as often as you like at XB Mornings on X, and we will give you the results in the 8 o'clock hour tomorrow. Oftentimes, I will communicate with people in Trent's family who I like more than Trent, his dad and his grandfather. So I will oftentimes just send some random baseball things to them. It's random baseball numbers about players who Trent doesn't know, but his father and his grandfather does. So I sent him one the other day about Bob Gibson and how Bob Gibson completed more games than Bob Gibson won. He threw 253 or 54, I forget exactly how many, complete games. He won 251 as a Hall of Famer. Let that settle in for just a minute, okay? That will never, ever happen again, especially in today's baseball. Oh, but baseball back then, they couldn't do it. I know that. Bull crap. I mean, I had this debate with my sons the other day, I think a week ago. You don't think Bob Gibson threw in the high 90s? Bull crap. Anyway, here's one for you, and then we'll get to the football discussion. Over a 4-year span from 1982 through 1985, so it's not that long ago, okay? You don't have to be old guy to recognize this. Dale Murphy was a really good player for the Atlanta Braves. I'm going to read you these 4 numbers. You ready? 1982, played 162 games and hit 36 homers. Got it?
Yes.
1983, he played 162 games, hit 36 homers.
Same amount.
1984, played 162 games, hit 36 homers.
So that's 3 years in a row.
1985, played 162 games, hit 37 homers. Durability, dependability, consistency. It's a pretty damn good 4-year stretch.
That's scary consistent right there.
How much would a guy like that be worth today? I'm not going to have the whole debate on whether or not he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, you can make that case, okay? And people can argue for and against. 2-time MVP, 5-time Gold Glover, 7-time All-Star, 4-time Silver Slugger, okay? Clemente Award winner, pretty damn good player over an 18-year stretch. Led the league in RBIs twice, led the league in homers twice. Traditionally, historically, consistently, 162 games. Year in and year out, he's playing 156, 162, 162, 162, 162, 160, 159, 156, 154, 154, 153. Good? You're damn right it is. You take that? Hell yeah, you would. So for his career, he averaged 30 homers. But I talked about 36, 36, 36, 37. He also hit 29 the following year, 44 the next. Overall, he finished in his career, in terms of home runs, with 398. Again, I'm not saying he's a Hall of Famer, but consistency is pretty impressive from a guy like Dale Murphy. Let me get to this real quick, and then we'll get to the final results of the poll question and the daily wager. Where would you think, now this is just one website, where would you think the Lions, based on what they did this year, based on who they have wrapped up for next year, okay, they need Kirby Joseph, Kevin Zeitler to sign on the dotted line. Hopefully you bring them both back, unless you swing some type of deal that's still out there. Myles Garrett, please. Where would you think they would be as a preseason Super Bowl favorite for 2026 or 2025 season, 2026, when the Super Bowl would be played? Where would they be?
I would guess third favorite.
I would have guessed higher than that. ESPN has the favorite as the Kansas City Chiefs. Is that surprising? It is. I mean,
given what just happened in the Super Bowl, yes, but they still have Mahomes, they still have Andy Reid. So
because here's what they write: General Manager Brett Veach says our free agency will be our draft in the offseason with regard to key player acquisitions because of a tight salary cap situation. Kansas City will have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds, having acquired an additional early round pick in round 3, trading cornerback L'Jarius Sneed to the Titans last offseason. So that they're going to use their draft capital there. Who's number 2?
Baltimore?
Buffalo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They have Buffalo.
Those two teams are so interchangeable to me. Go ahead. Read the what's the blurb?
They have, well, I'm not going to read the whole blurb on Buffalo.
But what they justify it with.
The teams need 2 or 3 players on either side of the ball who are difference makers, which if you need 2 or 3 on each side of the ball, should you be really preseason number 2?
No.
It makes no sense to me. Here's what they say about the Lions. And again, I take this all with a grain of salt because it's one website and it's way too early. We don't even know what the hell the Lions look like next year. Here's what they said. In the aftermath of the loss to the Commanders, Coach Dan Campbell's star-studded staff took a major hit. He'll have to adjust to compete for a Super Bowl. For offensive coordinator, they brought back John Morton, who was the Broncos passing game coordinator the previous 2 seasons. Also promoted linebackers coach Kelvin Shepard to defensive coordinator. Detroit still lost key assistants as former DC Aaron Glenn hired away passing game coordinator Tanner Engstrand to the Jets, and former OC Ben Johnson took receivers coach Antoine Randall and assistant QB coach JT Barrett to the Bears. That's it. All this is strictly about losing their coaches. And I'm not saying those coaches weren't important. You're damn right they were. They were really important. But that's why they ranked them 3rd. They don't talk about their talent. Bo Nix was pretty good this year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, actually, look at his numbers for Denver last year. I feel pretty good about John Morton in the passing game.
Me too.
Can he be as creative as Ben Johnson? I don't know. We'll soon find out. Answer me this. How often were you watching a Lions game this year and going, holy crap, I'm glad we got Tanner Engstrand as part of that staff?
Not once.
Antoine Randall. That was big. This is really big right here, okay? I'm not saying they weren't important, but I think those types of positions are replaceable. I think there's some good wide receivers coaches that can take place of Antoine Randall. I didn't realize that assistant quarterback coach JT Barrett was that instrumental in the development of Jared Goff. I think they're reaching here. The other thing you should note is the defending Super Bowl champions will be the Philadelphia Eagles. They ranked them 4th. I'm sure if that were Detroit, people would be all up in arms. Here's the 2 words that they use to describe Detroit: adjust and improve. Couldn't you say improve to everybody except for Philly?
Right. If everyone's goal is to win the Super Bowl, I mean, hell, Kansas City's got to improve. They got to improve that O-line.
Yeah, Baltimore's got to improve, don't they?
Yep.
Instead, they've got offensive line. Washington, keep on building. Baby. Good job. When we come back, we'll give you the final results of the poll question from yesterday. We will give you our daily wager. All that and more coming up here on X's and Bros on a Tuesday morning.
Rock legend Peter Frampton comes alive. Peter Peter Frampton, the Let's Do It Again tour returns Saturday, April 19th to Soaring Eagle Casino. Tickets start at $73 and are on sale now at the box office or etix.com. Peter Frampton, April 19th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. SoaringEagleCasino.com.
Valentine's Day is a good deal sweeter when you shop at Meijer. This week, select bagged Valentine's Day candy is buy one, get one 50% off. Fresh from Meijer chocolate dipped strawberries are just $9.99. Certified Angus beef New York strip steak is $11.99 a pound. And our floral department is overflowing with beautiful fresh Valentine's Day bouquets and flower arrangements. Count on Meijer to bring more from the heart to Valentine's Day. Exclusions apply. See all deals in-store, in the Meijer app, and online at Meijer.com.
Huge here with an invitation for everybody to join Van Andel Institute and Fox Motors Hockey for Hockey Fights Cancer at Southside Ice Arena in Byron Center on February 21st through the 23rd. Join the fun and help raise awareness and funds research into diseases like cancer and Parkinson's. Learn more at foxmotorshockey.com. That is foxmotorshockey.com.
Coming right at you. The excitement you've been waiting for. Eagle Casino and Sports. The mobile casino made in Michigan, made for Michigan. Play slots and table games with live dealers at one exciting site. PlayEagle.com. Sign up today and get a match deposit up to $1,500. That's right, up to $1,500 plus 100 free spins. Eagle Casino and Sports. Go to PlayEagle.com and start winning today. Must be 21 or older and in Michigan to play.
Bottom of the hour, we'll get to the manager that apparently is getting a little carried away. Or is he? About his specific player. We'll get to that coming up at 8:35. Welcome back. X's and BrO's Monday through Friday, 6 until 9. 18 after the hour, I should say, on this Tuesday. Tomorrow, Terry Mills will join us at 8:35. We'll talk a little bit about Michigan and Purdue and the Big Ten in general, and, of course, preview Michigan State that is soon coming up as well. And we just want to remind you, in case you don't know about this, that we want to send you here from the Michigan Sports Network to the Michigan State game, not once but twice this year. So the first time is coming up Friday, February 21st. So it's not far away. Part of the Ultimate College Basketball Junkie package. You'll get a chance for a VIP treatment. You'll have dinner with former Michigan head coach John Beilein on Thursday the 20th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. You're going to earn a 2-night stay there at that fantastic resort Thursday and Friday night. You get 2 tickets to Chrysler Center to watch Michigan and Michigan State play. And you will be driven from Soaring Eagle Casino Resort to Ann Arbor and back that night. So get a chance to go watch Bill Simonson's show, The Huge Show, broadcast live from Ascend. And all you got to do is text Dusty to 21,000. That's all you got to do. Everyone registered shows up at The Huge Show at Ascend inside Soaring Eagle Casino Resort on Thursday. You meet the coach, and we're going to do it again in the rematch on March 7th in East Lansing. So looking forward to that. So hope you can take advantage of that. Again, just text Dusty, as in Dusty May. Text Dusty to 21,000 to register. Good stuff right there. All right, let's get to the final results from yesterday's poll question. Based on what we saw in Super Bowl 59 and the Eagles dismantling the Chiefs, knowing that the Chiefs, I think it was of the 17 games they played, 11 were decided by one score or less. I guess it would be 7 points or less, 8 points or less. And somebody texted me last night and said the Chiefs only scored 30 points one time this year. No, they scored 30 points 3 times, including one in the playoffs against Buffalo. Not that should be the magic number. They scored 29 a couple of times. I don't know how many is enough. The Lions led the league in scoring. How far did that get them? They played one more game than the Bears, for crying out loud. I mean, give me a break. They got there. The Chiefs got there. They beat the teams they needed to beat to get there. Good for them, all right? But we asked you, is their dynasty over? Is it the end of the Chiefs dynasty? Yes or no? How did people vote?
58% say they're done. Yes, the dynasty's over. 42% say no, they'll win more.
Would you say it's over?
No.
I would say no.
I think as long as you have Mahomes, and he's going to turn 30 next year, I believe, or later this year, whatever it is. So he's probably, I know we like to talk about age. He's probably got, 5-6 more years in his prime, if you had to guess. If you had to guess. Who's to say he can't do what Brady did? I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So I'd be willing to bet over the next 10 years or so. I think Mahomes wins at least one more, maybe 2. I think as long as you've got him intact. Now, here's what gets interesting. Travis Kelce might retire. Andy Reid might retire here soon. I don't think either one of those guys are done this offseason. But just things to monitor when we're talking about the future of this quote-unquote dynasty.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, okay, he's got X amount left, because there's too many times I've been burned by that. So
yeah, me too.
I'm not going there. I never would have guessed, never in a million years, that Dan Marino wouldn't have gotten to more than one Super Bowl. And by the way, Dan Marino was, first of all, incredible. Second of all, had an amazing head coach in Don Shula, arguably the greatest coach of all time, and had a ton of weapons. Now, they weren't built on both sides of the ball like Kansas City has been, and I'm not sure about, how many, what's the window? How long did Brett Favre play till? 40, right? Now, he wasn't great at the end, right, when he was in Minnesota. But with but he played age 36. Let's put it this way. Age 36, he led the league in completions and attempts and threw for 3,900 yards. Threw way too many picks, but still. He was, could you call him productive? Somewhat productive, right? I suppose you could. All right. So he kind of defied things. I know you don't like this guy, but it's an example. Aaron Rodgers, the Jets have parted ways with him now. He was productive at age 39. He threw for 3,700 yards and 26 scores. It's not awful.
Well, even before that, too, what did he won an MVP at age 37? Is that correct? Or 36, maybe?
Yeah, 37. Yeah, he was the MVP, and he led the league in completion percentage and touchdowns. He threw 48 TDs and completed 31%. So if he can do it at age 37, why would I think Patrick Mahomes can't do it for, another 6, 7, 8 years?
Yeah, I've been burned on it too. I'm just trying to come up with some sort of, I'm trying to follow some train of thought as to why I believe the dynasty may or may not be over. And if I think Mahomes can play at this level until he's 36, 37, that's 6 or 7 more seasons. And I absolutely think the Chiefs window, I know you love that term, is open for those 6, 7 years, as long as he's there.
Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl at age 39.
That's a good one.
Okay. Not because of him.
Defense carried him, but he didn't hurt him, right? I mean, he could have lost those games for them, and he didn't.
He did something right. There. So yeah, I think you and I are both agreeing the window is still open. That's the little catchphrase. The thing about that is, Andy, could he do it with another coach?
That's the question, and it's a good one.
And I think therein lies part of the difference. It's not Patrick Mahomes' fault by any stretch, but part of the difference is guys like Manning won it with different coaches, right? He won with different coaches. He won 2 Super Bowls with 2 different coaches, but he also won with Tony Dungy and Jim Caldwell and John Fox and
Gary Kubiak.
Right, in Denver. Tom Brady won with different coaches, which was the age-old battle. Who needs who more? Remember when Brady was done, the Patriots unceremoniously let him go. He goes to Tampa. People were saying, can Bill Belichick win without Brady? Can Brady win without Bill Belichick? Brady proved he could. Some of these guys have won with different coaches, and that's an important statistic or important nugget of information. Joe Montana, not that he won a Super Bowl, but he got the Chiefs to an AFC championship game. He won with Walsh, he won with Seifert, and then he went to Kansas City, and he won with Marty Schottenheimer. All right, let's get to the Daily Wager, brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort and their sportsbook Ascend that has really good food. I mean, really good food. As many big screens as you could possibly need. It's a good place to go watch a game tonight. You can go watch Michigan play Purdue there at Ascend inside Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. What was the Daily Wager last night, and what do you have for us tonight?
Last night I had Baylor at Houston over 132.5, and Houston won that game 76-65. You do the math, that's 141. So we started the week off right. And tonight we've got both Michigan State and Michigan in action. Michigan's taking on Purdue at Chrysler. Ranked matchup. They're 1.5 point favorites. Michigan State, 11.5 point favorites. Tom Izzo going for the record. I'm going to parlay both of those spreads. I'm taking Michigan to cover the 1.5, Michigan State to cover the 11.5. And that gives you some decent value. You bet $5, you win 18.
Wow, you're going to take Michigan, huh?
Yeah, I agree with you. You mentioned it earlier, and we just kind of breezed past it, but I agree with you. I think they beat Purdue tonight, and that's probably their hallmark win of the season thus far.
Okay, that's a little that's gutsy on your part. I give you a lot of credit. I do. I give you a ton of credit.
Those big guys for Michigan are rolling right now.
State is going to play Indiana, so you get a chance to go to Ascend, and you can watch the Michigan game is earlier, correct? That's at 7.
It is, yeah.
Purdue, and then right after that, you watch Michigan State beat Indiana. How awesome is this? Like I know people. Like I got some pushback. Oh, you wanted them to lose out west? Oh man, that's terrible. No, I wanted more than them to lose. I just wanted him to celebrate it at home. And I didn't plan this out. I thought it was going to happen last game. Okay, now he's going to break Bobby Knight's record tonight by beating Indiana. That's storybook stuff. That is awesome. Good for them, and I love the parlay there. Or I love the dual bet. When we come back, I do want to get into this about a manager who's really high on his player, and he should be, but perhaps is putting that proverbial cart before the horse. We'll talk about that on the other side. This hour of X's and Bros proudly brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
You've heard him on Kill Tony, the #1 live podcast in the world.
He's always working on her craft. Macaroni and cheese.
Friday, March 14th, Tony Hinchcliffe at Soaring Eagle.
Your blood type is delicious.
Tickets start at $72 and are on sale now at the box office or etix.com. Check out the hottest comedy of 2025, Tony Hinchcliffe. March 14th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Relax, I only have so much time. I'm killing too hard.
More at SoaringEagleCasino.com.
What's up, Michigan? You're listening to Shep. Don't forget the Huge Show later today at 3 on the Michigan Sports Network. Huge here with an invitation for all of you to join Van Andel Institute and Fox Motors Hockey for Hockey Fights Cancer at Southside Ice Arena in Byron Center. It will take place February 21st through February 23rd. You can join the fun and help raise awareness and funds for Van Andel Institute's research into diseases like cancer and Parkinson's. Since 2016, Southside Hockey Fights Cancer has raised nearly $500,000 for groundbreaking research at VAI. You can help them reach the $500,000 mark and make a positive impact on the future of human health. Learn more at foxmotorshockey.com. That is foxmotorshockey.com.
I mean, he's impressive. If you've been around him at all as a human being, and I don't know if you have, I mean, he's so talented, but the way he carries himself, the way he presents himself, it's definitely special.
Is it possible we are looking at the best young pitcher over the last 40 or 50 years?
Yeah, I think he has all the tools, and I definitely think he's in the conversation. You know, to say it after having 15 or 16 starts or whatever he had, or 20 starts, I think it's hard to say, but I think with the tools that he has, the mindset he has, the way he works, he's definitely in that conversation with the best young pitchers that we've seen over the last 40 years. I mean, the pure stuff is as good as I've seen at this young of an age since I've been in the big leagues.
That's Pittsburgh Pirates manager Derek Shelton on with Chris Rose on a podcast. Just so Shelton understands, he said 15 games or so. Skeen started 23 games, went 11-3, 1.96 ERA. Had a whip of .947. That's walks, hits per innings pitch. He struck out 170 in 133 innings. So that's why I say to people all the time, when they are starting to talk about Jackson Jobe, and they're like, well, you know, you put him at the number 3 spot. Hold on a second. Yes, he's the number 3, probably. It's Skubal, Flaherty, Jobe, right, is how you would probably put them. Or you talk about Reese Olson, maybe he's the 3, probably more likely, and then Jobe the 4. But let's say, you know, even Reese Olson to a certain extent. Paul Skeens pitched 133 innings. Now, he wasn't up for the entire year, but he made 33 starts, okay? And I think it's important to know this. He made 23 starts, and he pitched 133 innings, which is pretty good. Reese Olson has pitched for the Tigers for really a year and a half, maybe 2 years if you want to. He had 22 starts last year. Again, 22. Paul Skeens, 23. Reese Olson threw 112 innings. Paul Skeens threw 133. Paul Skeens will probably get up to, what do you think, 160?
Yeah.
Innings? What do you think Reese Olson's going to get up to from 112?
140?
Maybe.
You hope? I think that's a decent bar.
If he stays healthy. So when I tell people all the time, you need more pitching. People are like, wait a minute, we've got our 5. We've got Skubal, we've got Flaherty, we've got Olson. Jackson Jobe's going to be. Hold on a second, man. Jackson Jobe's. You think he's going to start 133 innings like Paul Skeens did? Okay, so where are the innings? Casey Mize isn't going to do it because you don't even know if he's in that starting rotation. He's got to fight for it, right? You're not sure what's going to go on there. Cobb is in there, that conversation. So there's 6 guys that you could say. God forbid Kenta Maeda be in there. Oh my goodness. Okay, so where are the innings going to come from?
Kiter Montero? Maybe a few
innings.
I'm just throwing another name in there.
No, you're right. You got to look.
He was a big part of it last year.
How many guys are going to get you to the magic number? If you think there is a magic number, that's the first thing you have to admit. Are you going to have the need for 870 innings, whatever the case may be? So last year, Tarek Skubal threw 192 innings. You don't have to necessarily get to 200. I wish more pitchers would, but he got to 192. Prior to that, the most he had ever pitched was 149 innings. So he had never reached even 150 until last year. So that was a big leap from him. In 2023, injuries derailed it, only 15 starts, but he had 80 innings pitched, and suddenly he goes to 192. He's 29. He's got a few years under his belt. That's not Reese Olson. That's not Jackson Jobe. That's going to be hard to do. Anyway, the whole point of the conversation really is about Paul Skeens and about what Derek Shelton said, that he's in that conversation. And I think he's right about that. He is. But when I heard that, when I heard Chris Rose ask him, might he be the best young pitcher in the last 40 to 50 years, I thought immediately, hold on a second. I mean, come on, dude. Listen, let's just pump the brakes. Another example of the media getting way too ahead of itself. And then I started doing some research on this. And I thought, you know what? He's probably right. Now, we still have a ways to go here because he's only made 23 starts. He's rookie of the year. He's been really good, but he's got a ways to go. Could he become the next fill in the blank? I don't know. But over the last, 25 years, okay, since 2000, these are some of the best pitchers the league has ever had. And then you can make some type of reference point. Mark Burley, for example, won 214 games. So before you shake your head and say, come on, give me a break, he did win 214 games. He did win a World Series, and he did throw a no-hitter. Okay, he had 10 career shutouts. Not bad. Adam Wainwright. Always respected Adam Wainwright. A guy who helped the Cardinals win a World Series, but also a guy who was very durable. Big, strong dude, and actually came out of the bullpen for a little bit. Top 3 in the National League Cy Young Award voting 4 times, and actually started an all-star game. Tell me when there's no way he can eclipse what said guy did. So Cliff Lee's another example, the lefty who played a lot in Philadelphia. Roy Oswalt, do you remember him in Houston? Pretty damn good pitcher, too, for an extended period of time. Was second in the National League Rookie of the Year voting and was 5th in the Cy Young one season when he went 14-3. Traded to Philadelphia at the end of the season of his career. Josh Beckett, do you remember him for the Florida Marlins? Won 2 World Series and 138 games. Could you see Paul Skeens being as good as Josh Beckett, who was a huge prospect before he entered the draft? John Lester, the lefty who played for the Chicago Cubs, 190 wins, won 3 World Series. Could you see him? One with Chicago, a couple with the Boston Red Sox. Could you see Paul Skeens having something along those lines of a career? Cole Hamels, another lefty. Maybe these are unfair examples because they're left-handed pitchers. I don't know. Tim Lincecum. Could he be as good as Tim Lincecum was, who won 3 World Series with the Giants? I could see that. Steven Strasburg. Steven Strasburg, far too injured. Very similar in their builds and the power pitcher that they are. But he only made 30 starts 3 times in his entire career and won 112 games. Felix Hernandez. Anybody remember Felix Hernandez and how good he was? Really good pitcher. Just didn't play on a great team. In fact, from 2009 through 2014, he had a 2.7 ERA, and he struck out almost as many hitters as innings pitched. Won the AL ERA title in 2010 and 2014, and he was a Cy Young Award winner, even though he was only 13-12 that year. CC Sabathia, recent Hall of Famer. Might be a little bit of a reach there. 251 wins, I'm not sure. But over the last 25 years, he's in that conversation. Chris Sale's in that conversation, right? For best pitchers over that time. Corey Kluber is in that conversation. Couldn't stay healthy. This might surprise people. I didn't realize this either until doing some research. He was a perennial Cy Young contender with Cleveland over a 5-year stretch. He never won 100 games. In his career, he won 98 games, never reached 100. I think Zach Greinke is a really good example. Became less of a power pitcher later in his career, a little bit of an odd duck, Cy Young Award winner, won ERA titles, 6-time All-Star, 6-time Gold Glover, but over 200 wins in his career. Curt Schilling is where I'd probably draw the line. I don't think will Paul Skeens be as good as Curt Schilling? If he is, I mean, you could make the argument he should be in the Hall of Fame because I think Curt Schilling should be in the Hall of Fame. Madison Bumgarner. Again, this is over the last 25 years. Since 2000, the best pitchers. 3-time World Series winner. Madison Bumgarner considered one of the best big game pitchers of all time. 4-1 in his career, in his postseason career, with an ERA of 1. Pretty damn good, right? How about Jacob deGrom. Last 25 years, he's in that conversation. Jacob deGrom, though, during that stretch, not a lot of wins. Helps to have, a big machine like the New York Mets behind you. Won back-to-back Cy Youngs, but not a lot of wins over that stretch. Last 25 years, is it going to be Roy Halladay? Is it going to be Max Scherzer? Could you make the case that Max Scherzer's in that conversation? Absolutely, you could. Could Paul Skeens be Max Scherzer? Could he be Justin Verlander? Since 2000, those are the best pitchers that you look at. Sometimes, just sometimes, managers, we all get caught up in certain things, don't we? Our guy. We love our guy. We want to make sure our guy is getting recognized. I think Derek Shelton did a really nice job with the interview and put it properly. He's in the conversation. Still a long way to go. But you understand where I'm coming from when it comes to Paul Skeens and the expectations, but the numbers that he had this past year. Could you imagine Jackson Jobe being as good as Paul Skeens? Based on his repertoire? Yes. Could you see him going 11-3 and 23 starts and that type of ERA? I don't know if he's got the strikeout stuff that Skeens does that can blow you away. But sure, that would be fantastic. I don't know about the 133, though. That's the thing that kind of scares me a little bit. Because remember, Skeens had plenty of work when he went through college at LSU. Let's get to some texts. We got the text line is always open for you. Sports Radio to 21,000. That's how you get a hold of us. Or you can call us on the Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. What do we got?
Coming back to our Chiefs dynasty discussion, this texter says, I could see the Chiefs doing what Brady did with the Patriots. 10-year gap between Super Bowl wins. Too many stretches of dynasties.
That's interesting.
That would mean Mahomes would have to play well into his 40s if he's going to have two dynasties, but I get the logic.
I get the logic too. The consistency with Brady was Belichick. I don't know if one was more important than the other. I wasn't close enough there in Boston and out east to recognize that. They fed off each other really well. Mahomes isn't going to have Andy Reid. So that's why I bring up the dual coaches and how important that is. I think that's vital. Look, I mean, Troy Aikman did it, right? I mean, he won Super Bowl with Jimmy Johnson and Barry Switzer. That was the 1 year after. Johnson decided to leave and Barry Switzer takes over. And I don't know if Jimmy Johnson decided to leave. Maybe Jerry Jones thought he was getting way too much love, and Jerry Jones had to have those microphones and those cameras in front of him, which isn't surprising. But perhaps that's the way it went. But Troy Aikman did have it with a couple of different coaches. Can Patrick Mahomes do that? I'm very confident that he can. The question, Kansas City is going to have to answer eventually is, are they going to be able to do that with another coach, and who that coach will be? It's hard replacing a legend like that. Really difficult. And Patrick Mahomes will have I'm sure, a big say in a lot of the things that Kansas City does moving forward. And you can understand why. All right, another text. Go ahead.
Make the call on February 11th. Who's better, Michigan State or Michigan? I think they're talking men's basketball. Who makes the deeper run? Don't just say they split. They want us to call our shot right here.
February 11, they want to know who's going to be better at the end of the year, or
I think they're just saying
in the
here and now
matchup.
Call your shot. Who's going to make a further run in the tournament, Michigan or Michigan State? Because they are both obviously tournament teams.
Yeah, from a strength standpoint, I really like the fact that Danny Wolf can handle on the perimeter. I think Michigan State is deeper, and I trust Tom Izzo a great deal. I think both are really good. I'll say, I think for the most part, you need a guy who can take over games. Not sure Michigan State has that guy, but because of their balance and because of their commitment to defense and rebounding, I'll probably say Michigan State.
Yeah, I think Michigan State's style of basketball translates more to the tournament because they have the senior leadership and the depth and the coaching and all that. But, Michigan's got Dusty May. He's been to a Final Four. and they've got the big men, and they've got the versatility.
But Michigan's got the senior leadership too. I don't know how that's an advantage for MSU. The thing that concerns me about Michigan State, I think in the tournaments, you're going to have to make threes. You're going to have to hit three. I mean,
at least in one of those games, right? I mean, you can't make a Final Four run without hitting some.
Yeah, that's going to be really hard. That should be a deep concern for Michigan State fans. And if it's not, you're not paying attention. All right, you have to be able to keep teams defensively honest. And how do you do that? It's not always driving, and it's not always posting up. It is the ability to drive and kick and get guys out of position. If they're going to lay off you taking threes and they can send an extra guy to the glass and so on and so forth, that's going to be a problem for you. You have to be able to hit threes. So that's, I think, a legitimate concern for all of us who are rooting for Michigan State. From a Michigan standpoint, if turning the ball over as often as they do should be a concern. So if these teams, and look, how you decide, when you decide a team has become who they are is up to you. If you think 23 games deep, 24 games deep is who your team is, then it gives you even more reason to focus on those two areas, depending on those two teams, for pause in the NCAA tournament. Can Michigan State become a better three-point shooting team from this point to the NCAA tournament? Can Michigan do a better job of holding onto the basketball, treasuring the basketball from this point to the NCAA tournament? And those are just, look, no team is perfect. Those are just, I think, their most glaring weaknesses.
They are.
And
you're right. You're dead last in the Big Ten in both categories.
Change for both those teams, but I think it's going to be a little bit easier to treasure the basketball than suddenly find a consistent shooting eye from deep. That said, I like the fact that defense and the rebounding aspect of what Michigan State does, and the fact that, they draw some fouls and they're better at getting to the free throw line and making those free throws. I think that's been really important for them moving forward as well. Any other texts?
Yeah, one last one to bring us out of the show here. John and Holt wants your prediction tonight for both the Michigan and Michigan State game.
I think they both win.
I do too.
Okay.
I don't know if they'll cover those spreads. I hope they do, but I think they both win tonight.
Yeah, and I'm excited for both because I think Michigan, with quote unquote redemption against Purdue, I think they'll play much better than they did in West Lafayette, which was probably their worst game all season long. And I think it's going to be an emotional night. I mean, I'm happy for people who have covered Tom Izzo for as long as they have, and a chance to celebrate an incredible moment and occasion. Just to be there is going to be pretty cool. I hope they limit the number of times they show Magic Johnson or whatever. All the people who have had season tickets for forever. What a moment for you to take in. We'll talk about it tomorrow morning. Thanks for your text. We appreciate it. We'll be back with you tomorrow, 6 a.m. here on X's and Bros across the great state of Michigan.